Hello YouTube, welcome to the shop. This video is going to be on my new table saw. Alright, so I just finished restoring the table saw. It's a Jet CTAS-10 table saw. It's an older one. It's a 3 horsepower, 15 amp, 220 volt motor. Cabinet saw. It's got the 4 bolts underneath the casting that holds the casting to the top. It's not like a contractor saw or hybrid table saw. This is a full cabinet table saw. It's got a 10-inch blade, 3-inch height of cut, 45 degree, full everything. And from my last video, this one, it actually works now. That is not the original switch. The original switch was actually mounted on the front of the cabinet here. I didn't like that. I couldn't hit it with my knee, and it would be a very awkward hit if you were to. So I mounted it onto the side here. Brand new wiring. I had an electrician go through it a couple days ago. He went through the entire thing, made sure everything was working properly, and he even put me a new plug for it off of the plug to my planer. Alright, so the story on this saw is I found it was a Craigslist find, $200. I saw it down in a local city of mine, and I emailed the guy. Didn't hear back from him from about a month. No response at all, so I figured it was sold. And it was a bundle deal with this machine and a Delta Rockwell 3-phase shaper. The guy didn't have 3-phase power, and he thought both machines were 3-phase power, and here they weren't. This one was single-phase, and we found that out actually there. He was a little disappointed because he wanted to keep it then, but I told him no, it's going with me no matter what. And so I bought it, $200 each. And I have about probably $250 in it, plus the electrical, which it's not bad for a cabinet saw. So we brought it back up here, and I've got to put a whole new coat of paint over the entire thing, brand new bearings, brand new belts. It really runs nice now. So whenever I got the saw, there were actually a number of things that were wrong with it. One being that I managed to mangle the original switch that mounted on the front of the cabinet, getting it out of the vehicle. We brought it back in. I managed to mangle that. It no longer worked. I was also missing the lock knobs, like what I mentioned earlier, and I was missing the plug. There were a lot of things wrong with it. So I kind of went through and tried hooking it up to see if I could get it running. Whenever I had the motor out of it, I got it to the point where it would run, and it worked fine, but the switch wouldn't operate the magnetic starter. So I managed to, with help of Nicholas Smirk, I believe I'm pronouncing your last name correctly, we talked back and forth on YouTube a while back on trying to figure out why the saw had no power. I turned it on, it was very slow. I thought the magnetic starter gave it a soft start for this particular machine. Well, it doesn't. And I found out that here the motor was only running on 110. It was not running off of its full voltage of 220. So whenever you run a motor on 110, it starts slow and has absolutely no power, which were exactly the symptoms I found out. So I went and followed the wires from the magnetic starter and traced them into the motor, and there was this huge electrical tape contraption thing on the side. If you look at my previous video, I'll put a link in the description of my last video of this, and you can see it in there. And I tore that all apart, looked through it, and well, for any motor, or at least for this one, you do not need a neutral to your motor. Neutral's not going to do anything. Your cabinet's already grounded, and what the motor does is just needs 2 hots to make it to go. One for your start windings, one for your run windings. And I found out that here the previous owner cut, so you had 3 wires going into it. Well, here he hooked up 1 hot and 1 neutral, 1 to each winding. The other hot was just laying there, cut off, not doing anything. I'm glad it didn't short circuit and cause a fire. So after I found that out, all I did is went to the back of the magnetic starter and took the neutral and made it a hot. After that, 1 screw fixed that. Just undoing that, and it works fine now, and I could never get the switch to operate the magnetic starter no matter what I did. I followed the diagram and everything, and still nothing. So we finally got an electrician to look at it for us, and he said, I'm not even going to look at the diagram. I'm going to go off of memory of how it should be done in my head, and that's what he did, and it works perfectly. No problems. He even rewired the switch that a friend of ours gave to me. I found out it was missing a lock knob, and it was missing both knobs, the actual part for you to grip. And I am friends with a couple newly machinists, and a couple of my buddies, they were able to machine me 2 brand new lock knobs. Then I made the wooden handles for them so I could turn them and get the leverage to crank it down. The height mechanism was fairly locked up. You couldn't really turn it at all. And now, I mean, it's almost effortless. Other than raising it, yeah, you're lifting 75 pounds for the 3 horsepower motor. But now there is a little bit of grinding. I noticed inside the saw. I think it's just the heavy lifting of the motor. I noticed the pinion teeth in it have a slight wear mark where the spiral gear was. And what I'm thinking about doing is taking either a spring and helping a hefty spring to be able to help pull up the motor. That way it's not so much weight for the gears to pull. Or I might maybe rig up a small weight, like 30-pound weight, 40-pound weight, onto a pulley connected from the motor up to the bottom of the cast iron, and the weight will help lift up the motor. That way it's not so much on the handwheel, it's not so much on the operator, and it's not so much on the teeth. So it runs pretty nice now. The only problem I have now is there is a little bit of excess heat buildup in the pulleys. That's because the motor pulley is off by about 1/4 inch. It is rusted to the shaft, and I can't really do anything other than either pound on it and break the casting, which I don't really want to do, or WD-40 it for a really long time, and maybe that'll do it. There are a couple different versions of this saw. One is this version that has the door with kind of like an air intake. It's just louvers in the front, and it cools off your motor, but motor's mounted here. Not going to really do anything down at the bottom, other than let sawdust escape whenever it builds up in the saw. I've seen a couple different pictures of it. There's not too many of this style saw out there, but the ones I've seen do not have these louvers here, but they actually have them mounted on the side of the door, and that'll help cool your motor, because I noticed there is quite a bit of heat that builds up inside the saw, mainly because, it's an enclosed saw and there's nothing on the door to let any cool air. So, let's see this thing cut. Here's a piece of wormy cherry. 3/4 of an inch. Thing's got some serious power. Does like to burn a little bit. That's the blade I have in it. That's an old blade. I need to get a new one. I'm thinking Diablo, like 80 tooth, thin curve. Does a pretty good job. Nice and smooth. It wouldn't take much to get that out. Okay, so here's some pictures of the saw before and after pictures. Well, it's nice to have a new saw for the shop. Nothing like a 3 horsepower table saw. It's really nice. I'm glad I got it. Definitely worth the investment if you find something like this. They're not hard to restore. Literally a coat of paint, new bearings, and new belts. Basically follow the diagram that's already set up for you. If you have any questions, shoot me a comment down below or send me a message on YouTube. Any way you can get a hold of me, I'll try to reply back as soon as possible. I'm pretty busy, so watching YouTube and messaging people back takes a little bit of time, but I will get back to you. I'm going to ask you to please subscribe and like this video if you liked it. If not, send me a message personally why you didn't like it for some constructive criticism. Please subscribe to me down below, and thank you for watching. Have a good one.